minutes and 29 seconds.
Yeah, somewhere there.
Okay, so everyone's ready? Awesome, then I'll begin. The U.S. shouldn't try to solve a non-existent problem. It is because my partner and I believe this, that I believe that we shouldn't pass the affirmative team's plan. In this speech, I'm going to be responding to David's arguments in the 2AC, so let's get started. First of all, in response to the inherency point, he said that there was only one company who was exporting to Japan. However, I have three responses to this. My first response is no counter evidence. No counter evidence. They actually didn't bring up any counter evidence to say that there were other companies who can't export to Japan. And so this is really the only example that we have to go off of in today's debate round. And we've seen that this company was able to export to Japan. My second response is didn't take years to approve. It didn't take years to approve. There's actually no evidence in the evidence itself. It never says that it took years for them to approve. It simply says that the company was allowed to export to Japan. It never says anything about it taking a long time. So it didn't. We can see that it didn't really take them a long time to be able to export LNG to Japan, and they were allowed to. My third response is if companies want to export, they will. If companies want to export, they will. So basically what we have seen from these different examples, or from the only example that we have in today's debate round, is that if companies want to export, then they can. They're allowed to. They can go ahead and do it. And we can see that they're actually not doing it right now. So just because there might not be as many companies exporting to LNG, that doesn't mean that they're not able to. Let's move on to the response to the 18% exported by 2020, and they said that those were only the terminals that were approved. However, my response is purpose of terminals. Purpose of terminals. It wouldn't make sense to approve a terminal if you thought that the person wasn't actually going to be exporting LNG to any other country. So I believe that because they approve these terminals, that would mean that they would probably be approving more LNG exports, since that's really the only purpose of a terminal. So really, since that's the purpose of a terminal, I believe that since they approve those terminals, then there would be more approvals for exporting LNG to Japan. In response to our subpoint A and our inherency 2 about how they're opening a third reactor and that they have alternative energy, they basically said that you can't put nuclear power in your car. However, my response is not replacing LNG. Not replacing LNG. Our point wasn't that they're going to be replacing LNG entirely, because that seems a little bit outlandish. However, the nuclear power can definitely help LNG along. So they'll have LNG, but then they can also use the nuclear power, which they're trying to do right now. They're trying to use nuclear power in their country to help power all of these different thousands of homes along with LNG. So the point wasn't that they were going to be replacing LNG, simply that they will also have nuclear power. In response to the point about in our solvency, they said that again it was one company. However, I have two responses. My first response is no counter evidence. No counter evidence. Again, they didn't bring up any counter evidence of when a company has actually wanted this LNG from the U.S. So simply because this is only one company that we've brought up, I believe it's the only example that we have in today's debate round to go off of. So I believe that this one company definitely still does stand. My second response is oversupply of LNG. Oversupply of LNG. When you look at the piece of evidence, it doesn't just say that one company happened to not want U.S. LNG. It actually states the reason for it, and that was because Japan has an oversupply of LNG. So what that means is that it wasn't just saying that one company doesn't want LNG for no reason. Japan already has enough LNG, and they don't need any from the U.S., and that's why the company doesn't want it from the U.S., not because they just decided that they didn't want to. Okay, in response to the Russia point, they had two responses. The first one was that it was thousands of homes that it would be powering. However, my response is nuclear energy. Nuclear energy. Now, as we brought up in our inherency, actually, of alternative energy, even though Russia may be giving them like 10% of their LNG, that's not very much because they are increasing their nuclear energy. And once they've increased this nuclear energy, then they really won't have to worry about Russia's 10% anymore, because they've still got 90% of the LNG that they're still getting from other countries or importing from other countries, as well as the nuclear power. So really that means that the nuclear energy basically solves that problem. In response to the net economic benefit, basically where they said that we would be getting 244,000 jobs, My response is exports won't increase. Exports won't increase. I believe, as we've shown, we're already exporting LNG to Japan, and if companies want to export, then they can. So this plan really isn't going to increase our exports to Japan in any way. So it's for these reasons that I would urge you to vote for the negative team. Thank you.